Welcome to PCS with Military.com. I'm your host, Amy Bouchatz, Military.com's executive editor. On this podcast, we talk about everything you need to know to make this military move season your best yet. PCS with Military.com is brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union, proudly serving all branches of the armed forces, veterans, and their families. No matter where you are in your military career, Navy Federal Credit Union has the products and resources to help you navigate your finances. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. Our members are the mission. Now, let's get this PCS started. If you're anything like me, the second those military move orders, or even the rumor of military move orders, hits your radar, you're researching the heck out of your next duty station. Where should you live? What schools should your kids attend? Where is the nearest target? And is it or is it not a super target? In short, only the important stuff. But of course, you're also doing this from afar. On the one hand, nothing is better than the feeling of knowing you've got housing all locked and loaded before you even watch the movers pack the van. On the other hand, putting together your new life from a distance is basically a trust fall. How do you really know what you want if you've never spent significant or often any time there? Today's PCS with Military.com guest is a top expert on dealing with your new duty station while still at your old one. Kellie Artis is an Army spouse and part of the brains behind Millie, a wealth of information and help for duty stations nationwide, and a real-life army of military spouses from all branches whose only job is to be your eyes and ears on the ground at your upcoming duty station home. Today, Kellie is going to give us her best intel on setting up your new home from afar. Kellie, welcome to PCS with Military.com.
Hey, Amy. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to talk to you today. I just love what you guys do, so this is going to be fantastic. Start by telling us how many times you have personally moved with the military or otherwise.
Okay, so you threw me off on this question because I usually say 7, which is our number of official PCSs. And we did most of those in like a 3-year time span, which is kind of crazy. But I counted back with my non-military moves, and I was really restless in college. So I get to add 8 more moves.
Counting. Holy cat.
I know I had problems with people. I just don't living with people is hard, y'all. So, I moved a couple of times when I was a kid, and then, like almost every 8 months in college. So,
But were you at the same college or were you like, okay.
no,
So
just different apartments. Yeah.
Okay,
Oh my God. And y'all, like filling up your laundry basket kind of moves, not U-Hauls and big moving trucks and stuff. It was like take 8 trips and get it done. So yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm counting it.
That is so real. Oh, the days when all of our household goods, well, first that we didn't even know the words household goods.
Right.
Like what we own could not be called household goods those days.
Wardrobe, a toaster, and my margarita glasses was probably about all I had.
That's right. Who needs clothes? It's fine. All right. So it does not take a rocket scientist to see why dealing with your new duty station from your old one is not the best, right? But I'm sure you've seen some pretty dramatic examples of times this has been a huge problem. Can you give us a couple?
Oh my word. Yeah, I can give you a ton. And we hear this a lot from folks that kind of stumble upon us out of a need. But yeah, often it's just the inability to go to the actual location ahead of time. So, obviously it's ideal to we call it recon. We're going to gobble up all the jargon, y'all, cause it's just fun. So, oftentimes you want to go recon your new duty station, check out the neighborhoods, actually look at the house. I don't know, before you sign a lease, but often that's a luxury that we just don't have available to us. Especially this past year with travel restrictions and the pandemic. I mean, it just has been crazy. So we have heard so many crazy stories. Usually it has to do with the home being misrepresented, right? Or just not getting the whole picture. Usually you see what someone who is advertising their home wants you to see. And that's not their fault. I mean, they have an incentive to get the house rented or sold. Usually we deal with more mishaps on the rental side because you don't necessarily have an advocate working for you, like an agent. So yeah, we've heard of things like, a family that has, a child with a severe cat allergy walking in and being like bowled over by cat pee smell, right? As soon as they open the door. Or maybe there's like a power line transformer, big, huge, gnarly thing in the backyard that probably emits not amazing things for your brain, right? Like, didn't make the listing photo, right? We've heard of like cemeteries. We've heard of some more, dramatic things and more concerning things like mold infestations in homes, safety concerns with like railings and whatnot. And even farther down the line of scary and sad are the actual scams that exist. And those actually do happen where somebody will list a home that doesn't actually even exist. So they kind of prey. Some people prey on the fact that we're under this really compressed timeline. They know we're not there, right? We're not in the actual location. Can't even drive by it to see if it's real. And are kind of stressed out when we're doing it. So, yeah, those are just some of the things that we see.
And nothing adds to your two things you just said I want to go back to. First of all, nothing adds to your stress like coming to your new home and finding that it's actually a cemetery. You're going to have to tell us more about that.
Well, it's mainly that it was adjacent. So, like, this actually happened to me as a kid, but then I had heard this story again recently. Apparently, my family moved to a home when I was like 2 years old, um, and then realized that there was a cemetery, like, kind of in the backyard. Like,
Oh my
and I had a cousin that lived with us at that time who was old enough to be really freaked out by it. So we ended up not living in that house for very long.
God. Okay.
But yeah, it happens. Like we've heard, I've heard of people like moving in across the street and there's a penitentiary, like
Ooh.
unless you know the area, you have no idea what's outside of that little frame on the window, or the photo gallery in your browser. Like you really have no clue. You can try Google Streets, sometimes that can lend a little bit of perspective. We encourage people to do that, but yeah, sometimes we're just a little bit too trusting.
Yeah. And then the second thing you said, you mentioned people being scammed. I have a friend at Fort Campbell who opened her door one day to find her new renters for the house that she was not renting and had not listed.
Oh, crap. So they just
Uh,
picked up at her address. Yeah, so yeah,
yeah.
sometimes it could actually be an actual house that somebody has, like, grabbed pic 'cause think about it, if you've ever listed your house online, I think there are probably photos of my house on Zillow somewhere from
Yeah.
forever ago. You could just grab them and yeah, it happens.
She was an army spouse and they
Oh,
were an army family. And she's like, I am so sorry, but I do not have your money, right? Because they pay
crap.
money. I don't have your
Oh,
money and I live here. Like, I can't, there's nothing I
mm.
can do about this,
Oh my god,
you
that's
know?
heartbreaking, and yeah, and sadly in those situations, a lot of times you're kinda just out of luck.
Yeah.
That's on
Ooh.
you. The installations provide housing. Usually there's some sort of inventory. Sometimes there's not. Sometimes there's, like, crazy wait lists, and it varies so drastically from base to base, but for the most part, I think the military kind of just assumes that they've given you a valid option.
Yeah.
Outside of that valid option, you're kind of on your own.
Yeah.
So it is buyer beware a lot
And
of
these
times.
guys literally were in her driveway with a U-Haul. I mean, it
Oh
could
my
not have been more, like,
god.
of a dramatic situation that
Oh,
was just terrible for and she felt so bad, but my goodness, what
wow.
do you even do? But
Yeah.
then okay, so then the other thing I thought is, like, so we had the ability to go on a house hunting trip when we
Mhm,
moved from Fort Benning to Fort Campbell. It's about an 8-hour drive, so totally doable, right?
mhm,
Like, for the peace of mind. So we go up
right.
there, we find a place to live, we see it with our eyeballs, like we
Mhm.
not just online. We notice that there is in fact the transformer you mentioned in the front yard. Like we're like, that's fine. We're willing to like we have free medical care, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And all good. Okay. So fast forward to actually moving there, we realized like this is not the neighborhood for us.
Mhm,
Like we lived there for not even a year. We did not like the neighborhood. We did not like where we ended up living. We did not like
mm,
the area. It's just like it wasn't great. Fort Campbell's surrounded by a lot of farm areas that used to
mhm.
have trees and don't anymore. And so there can be a lot of wind there. And the wind would just come off of these fields and that house would just shake,
Oh,
and I
wow.
hated that. And just things like that, like things that you
Yeah,
wouldn't know unless you had actually lived there. So I
right.
think that's another thing, right? Like even doing a house hunting trip did not solve my "I
Right.
did this from a distance" problem, because maybe the house was better than something I would have signed for had I not been there. But at the same time, like, there's all this like intel that
Yeah.
once I lived there, I was like, we're moving down the highway. So
Yeah, and it often takes, like, that experience before you know these things. I mean, in California, there's this tax called Mello-Roos, and it affects all kinds of things. In, I wanna say, like, Arizona, people get these things called swamp coolers to heat or cool, I forget what it's been a minute since I've done all this research, but there are all these little quirky things, that you don't know until you realize you missed it, right? And then you're like,
yeah,
"Oh, I shoulda" you don't even know to ask that question. Why would you?
no, no,
So it does help to have that sort of insight and have, people that you can either ask or you can look up online and say like, "Hey, what do you wish you had known? Like,
right.
what was your thing? What was your thing about the wind coming off and shaking the house? What
Oh my
was that
goodness.
moment for you at this duty station?" And
Right.
people will tell you because they know.
Yeah. So it brings us to my next question, which is, how do folks solve this issue? Like, what have you
Mhm.
seen?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's relying on your networks, right? It's asking the folks like, so if I knew that, you had been at Fort Campbell, I'd say, "Hey, Amy, what was your experience like moving to Campbell? What neighborhood did you pick? Why did you
Don't live
choose
in Oak
it?"
Grove.
Okay.
Warning. Warning.
So why did you pick where you picked and find me some okay, let me back up a little bit. So I did this for Millie. We actually ran focus groups, and the questions that we asked folks of questions of folks that were currently living at each of the duty stations. Hey, okay, first of all, tell me everything, right? Tell me, like you mentioned in the intro role, like, where is Target? Is it Target? Is it Walmart? Is it dollar store? Right? Those that matters. How close are things? How close is the base really? Not based on what the websites say, right?
Right.
Okay, because they all lie, y'all. Everybody lies about commutes. Everybody lies about commute times.
Well, and like the difference between I live, 10 minutes from Fort Campbell at Fort Campbell, and
Right.
I live 10 minutes from base at Fort Campbell, and I live 10 minutes from base in Tampa, are two entirely different things.
Is it by the crow flies or is it what side of base are we talking? I'm at Fort Bragg. This
Mm,
base is gigantic. It's like an
right.
hour end to end. So depending on which county you choose to live in, it could really drastically matter. And based on which, unit specifically your spouse or service member is serving at, really it does impact over time. And, even though you think like a 30-minute commute would be fine because you really love this house and the photos are just so amazing, actually, what is the impact of that on your life? You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
your family, have you accurately assessed your family? I'm getting
And here at Fort, I'm at J Bear Joint Base Elmendorf,
mhm.
Richardson, in Alaska. Here at J Bear, your 40-minute commute becomes an hour and a half if someone hits a moose. Hello.
Those are things you need to know. And then what kind of vehicle and tires do you need on that, vehicle as it does because of
Right.
the weather, because of the snow? So yeah, so those were all the kind of questions that we tried to, and you do have to do a little bit of prodding because if you think about it, once you've lived in a place for a minute, you do get used to the thing and you don't recognize it as an issue anymore.
Sure.
You forget it. You become normalized to it, you acclimate to it, whatever the case. And for incoming folks that are brand new, you almost have to like remember back. What were the things you complained about? What were the pain points for you? What were the adjustment issues? Like, what were the things that hung you up that you wish you had known? And had you known them, what would you have done differently? So, those were all the kind of questions we asked. And we always got a totally different answer depending on which duty station it was, which makes our lives super fun because there's no way of like, there's no standard, like there's no knowing anything. The one cool thing that I will say from researching all of these duty stations in bulk was kind of that there was sort of a template though. Like, you know what I mean? There's always kind of like certain areas that you kind of know, you just don't know what they're called yet because you don't know the area yet. Some duty stations call like we differentiate areas in different ways. Sometimes it's neighborhoods, sometimes it's cities, sometimes it's exits off the highway, right? Like some at Fort Campbell, they go by exit 6 and 10 and I'm like, "No, what's the city called?" Cuz I don't see exit 6 on a map. You know what I'm saying? Like you can go in the Facebook groups and you hear people chatter, about these different areas, but how are you supposed to know what that even means if you've never been there and you've never driven down that road and you don't know what the different exits are?
Yeah,
So,
it means don't live in Oak Grove, just
okay.
for everyone.
However,
I'm gonna
maybe
get
there
some
no, no,
email from
wait, no,
people
wait.
who really
No,
like Oak Grove, and
no.
you know what, guys? Like, let's level set. You do you, but I didn't like
Do
living
you?
there.
So another really a key point that I want to point out, especially about the content that we offer, is that we did try to be cognizant of every price point, every lifestyle. We actually are really objective in our information. So even though I would get on the focus group calls, and a lot of times I'd get people like Amy who were like, "Don't live in Oak Grove," I would still
It's not how
say
I sound, Kelly. Please.
I would still try to dig and say, like, figure out, okay, so if Oak Grove makes the most sense for me and for my family or for my budget, okay, cool. But then tell me about that area. Like, let's dig a little bit deeper. If I need to live in that area or at that, in that neighborhood that's really close to base because of the needs we've already assessed in our family, we need super short commute, we need to be close to a medical facility, like different things like that. And we end up kind of landing in an area that maybe it's not super popular with the military crowd. Okay, cool, but how am I going to make the most out of that area?
Sure.
Because there are always pockets and gems
Oh,
and
yeah.
really cool things to discover. So we did try to dig pretty pretty deeply and be fair to all of our sweet little military areas. They all have their own unique flair, and there's something for everybody. So
Okay, alright. So I sounded a little shrill about poor little Oak Grove. Jeez. One of the things that you have been talking about is kind of having this inside scoop. And
Mhm.
of course, Millie helps solve a problem with that by having an inside scoop for hire, if you will. Where
Mm.
did this idea even come from?
Yeah, so it started from a need, right? It's always like, okay, so I don't know how many times you do this. I do this a lot. I get online, I'm looking for something, I can't find it. I'm like, "Ugh, there should be a solution to this problem that I'm dealing with right in this moment." So it's kind of funny. I found Millie after it had barely become a company, like they were just brand new to the scene. And I found Millie because I was having issues with a rental property that I was self
Mhm.
managing from a few states away. And I was so irritated because I had just fired my property manager and was going to have to drive 5 hours to go let a painter into this house because it was vacant. I was so annoyed. I'm like, yeah, I could ask my friends to do it. I don't want to burden my friends, whatever. Anyway, come across Millie and I was like, oh, I'm so glad this is a thing. So backing up, Millie came about because it was founded by two veterans. And one of those veterans, Ken Robbins, our CEO, is married to an awesome real estate agent. And she found herself having to, every time she PCS, like restarting her entire business. Right. Like, so here we kind of always try to tackle a couple of problems. So we've always been super focused on PCSing, obviously, and alleviating that stress, making sure that people connect with verified folks and like trusted professionals and people who have actually PCSed, right? Not people who are just interested in like, selling to the military, right? So I always wanted to make sure that there were like folks that were relatable and authentic and top quality professionals that we could provide to our military families. But then also we're very cognizant of the military spouse unemployment problem. So a lot of what we do, I mean, we don't hire a ton of people, and most of our help is contracted, but we're still really adamant that anything anyone ever does for us, they're compensated for. There's
Mm,
no volunteering at Millie. We're just completely adamant about that. So what happened was, here's this amazing military spouse real estate agent who, had to change locations, change duty stations up to like the Northern Virginia area. And they kind of put her down at the bottom of the brokerage thinking, well, you can't be a good agent because you just got here. You have to learn the area. She was like, not true. So what she did was just focused on military clientele. She was like, I know all the questions people have and I can tell them all the answers. And I've done this a million times. I'm amazing at PCSing. And so, anyway, she ended up climbing really quickly up the ranks through her brokerage, just focusing on military home sales because people sought her out. She became like a trusted professional. And you'll see this across the country. Folks seek out, the veteran, the military spouse agent because there's a shortcut. There's vernacular.
yeah.
We don't have to catch people up. And we don't have to explain why we're on this time frame. Like, what do you mean you can't come see the house before you buy it? We don't have to do that. Like, we're
What
okay
right.
with that.
Well, and it's like what you're talking about with having people you can turn to, just through the Facebook hive mind,
Yeah. Yeah.
even, right? Like, that
Yep.
you that we all speak the same language,
Me
and
too.
that that when I say, "What's the commute?" I'm not
Right.
talking about, I'm talking about,
To
like,
the gate.
physically on base,
Yeah, you're
right,
talking
to
all the
my
way
unit's
in.
door.
Yep,
Like,
exactly, exactly. So, yeah, so what happened then was, these 2 vets launched Agent Hero, which is a real estate agent referral network, and all of our agents are exclusively veterans and military spouses. We love civilian agents. We think they're amazing. We try to help them with resources to be better agents for military families, but our network is exclusive to those who have PCS. And they also have to meet tons of really pretty strenuous metrics to make sure that they're not like hobby agents, because we want to make sure that if we hand a military family to one of our agents, they will take extremely good care of them, right? Because we don't have time. We don't have time to fire agents and find new ones because we're unhappy or they fell off the radar or they went on vacation and didn't tell us, right? Like so. Agent Hero started as this network of trusted professionals. And then we decided really quickly that we also needed to wrap those professionals in a ton of information and resources. So we built Millie, which became sort of the umbrella brand and houses all of the content and resources. We have information for uh, over 85% of the active duty population. So, all of the bases that are stateside that you will potentially be moving to, we probably have covered for you on the base or on the website. So, you can go research it for free. No gates, no emails, nothing. Just go on, find your base, learn as much as you can. From there, we then have another network of providers called Millie Scouts. And these folks are our military spouses. They're all independent contractors who are basically available for like gig work. So, we say task rabbit kind of. They can actually be your eyes and ears on the ground. So you do hire them. They do charge for their services, and rightly so. I mean, I think that all of our time is valuable, and they should be compensated for their for their time and talents. And I guarantee you, they'll go above and beyond. So we set some rates, but usually they'll give you, because you know how it goes, right? So
oh, yeah.
I fuss at them all the time. I'm like, price your services better. But they're also living the life. They're cognizant of financial constraints as well. So yeah, so you can hire them to go do a FaceTime tour and make sure that the house is as represented on the listing. Right? They've actually this year been really busy with HHG support.
Hmm.
So given
Household
household
stuff, yeah.
goods, thank you. Um, we've had a lot of folks reaching out to us saying that they needed help with their move because they were having a PCS separately from their service member.
Mhm.
Um, it was probably one of the top concerns we saw this year because of the pandemic and because of all the things. But yeah, there were families that were having to, either the spouse went ahead or the service member went ahead. Either way, somebody was stuck by themselves with, a team of movers or and a couple of toddlers. We had a few pregnant spouses who were trying to do this solo with kids running around. It was crazy. And y'all know if you've done this, I think it's a 3 adult job to
Yeah.
monitor and be present while the move is actually happening because it is just chaos. And I think if we had 3 adults for every HHG to like supervise, we'd probably not have as many issues with, claims and whatnot, but we don't have that. So what we've been doing is helping supplement some of that just project management sort of stuff and like, hey, can you run and pick up the subs from Publix for lunch, right? Even little things like that or checking off inventory. They're available just to kind of be like an assistant. So
Yeah.
we've had some pretty creative requests, and for the most part, the scouts are able to accommodate. They're not like heavy lifters, or they're not going to put your furniture together, but there's so much that they can do for you. To include walking into a home and telling you, "Yeah, it smells like cat pee."
Right?
So, yeah.
Let's take a pause to thank our sponsor, Navy Federal Credit Union. You can let Navy Federal Credit Union help you save on moving expenses with one of their low-rate credit cards. You'll enjoy a 5% lower average APR than the industry standard, plus rewards that don't expire as long as the account remains open. And they have 24/7 help from their U.S.-based member service team. Check out NavyFederal.org for more information. Navy Federal Credit Union. Our members are the mission. Okay, so what are 3 things spouses and service members can do before official orders come up to deal with their new duty station while still at the old one?
Yeah. So the number one thing I think is research. And that could be because I'm kind of a research nerd. Maybe not everyone gets as excited about this as I do, but the first thing that I would say do, even if you've got like a short list of 2 or 3 places, go ahead and start like getting immersed in the area. Like start understanding what it's like to be stationed at that place. You can start with Facebook groups if you want, but I'm going to throw a big, huge caution out there. A lot of the times, the only thing you hear about a duty station are the negative things because those folks are the ones that have just not enjoyed their time. So be really careful and kind of read between the lines of what people say, and especially if they're saying it loudly in some of the groups.
Because, of course, there's so much nuance to that, like, it can be the world's
Totally.
greatest area, and you had the world's worst time, and it has nothing
Right.
to do with the area and everything to do with the Army.
100%. 100%. Or it could be because you moved to Oak Grove. I don't know.
You know what, like, now that I'm thinking about it, so I people always ask me about Fort Campbell, "What do you think?" Whatever, and I say something to the effect of, "Fort Campbell's lovely, I didn't have a great time there."
Yeah.
Oak Grove is great, sort of. I didn't have a
It's a little
I
windy.
didn't have a it's a little windy for me.
It's a little windy.
I moving out of Oak Grove was the right decision for our family. Lots of people love it.
That's totally fine.
But that's totally thing, like what you're saying.
Yep.
Like Fort Campbell, the area is beautiful. Land Between the Lakes is one of my
Mhm.
favorite places on the planet.
Yeah.
I never want to live there again.
Right, and that's fine. And so but the problem though is if you're moving to Fort Campbell, the last thing you wanna hear is how horrible somebody else
Exactly.
had of a time because
Exactly.
what are you doing? You're setting yourself up.
Right,
Like,
and I'm fully
why?
aware that
Yeah.
my perception of Fort Campbell has absolutely nothing to do with the area or even any other
Mm,
unit on base. It is a snapshot in
yeah.
of one point in time
Yep.
at one unit for one person.
Yeah, it's true. And it's you're right, it's super nuanced. So, I would say wait until you have all kinds of warm fuzzies about a place before you dive into the Facebook groups
Mm,
and start asking people for resources and recommendations, right? So, I mean, I'm going to encourage you to go to our website, it's Millie.com. You can look up your duty station and get kind of an overview and understand like what you're looking at when you go to the Facebook group, right? So
yeah,
we'll tell you, we'll
absolutely.
lay it out for you and there's maps and photos that military spouses that live there took, right? There's all kinds of really like relevant perspective that you can get and then take that from there and then start diving down if there's something that looks like it's interesting for you or if that type of those amenities are important. We also have some ebooks that can help you do the family assessment that we've been talking about. Understand, like, do you need to be 10 minutes from Target or are you okay being farther out?
No, I'm not.
Right? That matters, right?
It
So,
does.
so also,
Let me just add though that we like your resources so much at Military.com that we have them linked, as you know, to a variety of our own base guide pages.
yeah,
That just just an endorsement there because we think that
incredible.
that content you guys have put together is so useful that we think other people should look at it too.
Thank you. Yeah, and we're super thankful for that. And we think it's helped a ton of people because even when I was doing my research for the base guides on Millie, I kept coming across Military.com. I was like, oh, this is so great. So, all right. So look up, our website, Google, obviously. Another fun little tip that I give for research is Instagram.
Hmm.
Look up some prominent Instagrammers from those areas. So think about influencers, right, who are going out and eating food and taking photos of their dessert or, going on hikes, Amy, right? Like all the outdoorsy
Mhm.
folks. Like start trying to curate some of that in your feed. So you're starting to kind of get visually immersed in the area before you get there too. It kind of gives you a behind the scenes look at how the locals live or what's incredible about that. What are the good photo ops even, right? So those will be
Yeah.
the beautiful places that you're going to want to explore.
And
Um,
nothing inspires you about a new duty station as much as dessert.
I mean, for real. And like you don't want to live there for 6 months before you uncover that. Go ahead and
No,
do
you
that
do not.
early.
You need that on day one, baby.
Take advantage of that early. And that's honestly, that's part of what we're trying to do, right? We want folks to get adjusted before they go so that they don't lose time when they get there. It's hard enough. Y'all, we are lonely when we first get to a duty station. We are tired. We are focused on getting everyone else settled in. So do as much of the legwork as you can while you still have the energy and the excitement behind it. And that way you can maybe skip a little bit of that,
So true.
transition period that takes so long. So, all right, my second one is network. We've already talked about this a little bit with the
Mm.
Facebook groups. I want to encourage everyone to reach out to one of our scouts. You just go to the website, scout.gomilly.com, contact the scout. There's a little contact button. You can message them. Just like, hey, I'm moving there. What's it like? Right? They love these conversations and they're happy to help. If you get to a point where you need to hire them, you have someone that you've already made a relationship or connection with, a relationship with, and they'll be standing by. Maybe there's some trust built up. They're happy to pass along resources, things like that. We also have a Facebook group if you're interested in that. But yeah, just go ahead and reach out to them, start those conversations, ask your network, hey, have you all ever been stationed at Fort Campbell, since we're picking on Fort Campbell?
Poor
If
little
they
Campbell.
haven't, and they know people that like, ask them too. Okay, do you know anyone that's stationed there? You don't have to be friends with them, but reach out to them and say, hey, I'm headed to the area. Can you tell me about where you live? Why
Mm.
do you like it? Do you wish you had not chosen it? Those are easy conversations that every one of us are happy to have. The next one I have is connect. So, and this goes back to my go ahead and get started living there before you get there. I really, really like Chamber of Commerce websites, the Visitor Center website. If there are national parks nearby, Amy, I know you're going to love this. Go ahead and find out where the parks are, especially this year. Find out what the outdoor activities look like. Find out where the restaurants are. Where's the nightlife? Where's the downtown? What are the cultural events that are happening in that area? And start putting some of that stuff on your calendar. It's easy to do on Facebook. If you find Facebook events that you're maybe look interesting, go ahead and start like responding to those events and getting it literally on your calendar. Because when you get there, you're going to be tired and you're going to want to leave your house, but you're not going to know where to go. And the last thing you want to do is pull out your phone and try to figure out, well, what are we doing this weekend? If y'all have husbands like my husband, it's like, well, what are we doing this weekend? I don't know. I'm not the party planning committee. Like it's like, but
Little
if you
bitter there,
can,
Kelly.
no, not at all. But if you can do some of this beforehand, plan little excursions, give yourself a break from the boxes. It helps you meet folks, while you're out, helps you go ahead and get adjusted to your new community. It gets you outside, which is always healthy and good for you. And it just helps you sort of like embrace where you're living. You can get walled in really quickly, and sometimes that's hard to climb out of. So just do it as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, such good tips. Okay, last question. Do you
Mhm.
have any special advice for our poor little friends who are trying to deal with moving overseas or back from overseas or
Mm.
between places that are overseas? There's a lot of seas and you are over them. Do you have any
Over all
advice?
of them. So I've never done an OCONUS overseas move. I have always been one that has been scared to leave. I'm such a homebody. My husband, bless him, he's always wanted to go overseas. But my number one tip is probably just going to be get as organized as you possibly
Mm,
can. Organize yourself, organize your files, organize your stuff, organize your mind, and do everything farther in advance than you think you need to. If you're overseas already, you should have already gotten yourself organized to a point. So try not to lose that, right? Try to hang on to that in those systems and try to keep things fresh in your mind so that when you come back, it's not as jarring as it probably was the first time. But heading overseas for the first time, back to reach out to your networks, tap other people for advice. If you're headed to somewhere that someone is already there, that's an obvious, you know, hey, tell me everything. What do I need to know every step of the way? And then rely on the resources, like the official DoD resources too. The sponsor program for OCONUS moves is still pretty vibrant, and there are tons of people who are eager and happy to help you out for living overseas specifically. So tap into those resources as well.
wonderful. Kelly, thank you so much for coming on PCS with Military.com. I appreciate your time and all of your advice and expertise and that sweet network of awesome you've got going on there.
Thank you so much, Amy. This was awesome. And I encourage everyone to go to military.com for all of their awesome PCS resources and enjoy the rest of the series.
Thanks so much for listening to PCS with Military.com. You can get all of the military news and information you need delivered straight to your inbox by subscribing to Military.com at military.com/subscribe. A special thanks to our sponsor, Navy Federal Credit Union, proudly serving all branches of the armed forces, veterans, and their families. No matter where you are in your military career, Navy Federal Credit Union has the products and resources to help you navigate your finances. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. Our members are the mission.